President, the senior senator from Arizona, our distinguished chairman of the Armed Services Committee and my friend, has made a very impassioned plea for me to remove my hold on the nomination of Eric Fanning to be Secretary of the Army. I want to make it very clear. As a veteran, a Marine, I support the nominee for this post. Kansas is the proud home to two Army posts, Fort Leavenworth, the intellectual center of the Army, where the Command and Staff School is located, and Fort Riley, home of the Big Red One, two proud posts with very rich histories. I want the Army to have a highly qualified secretary just as much as the distinguished senator from Arizona. But it is due to my deep respect and concern for our men and women in uniform at Fort Leavenworth and those who live and work in the region that has compelled me to issue my hold on the President's nominee in the first place. As I have stated publicly from the beginning, and personally to Mr. Fanning, former Army Secretary John McHugh, and Defense Secretary Ash Carter, my quarrel is not with the nominee, but with the President. President Obama continues to insist that he will close Guantanamo Bay detention facility before he leaves office, transferring the remaining detainees to the U.S. mainland with Fort Leavenworth under serious consideration. Quite frankly, this is a legacy item for the President. After much study and review, I can name you countless reasons why this plan is wrong, and it's also illegal. The President's own cabinet has acknowledged this. The Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General have publicly stated current law prohibits the transfer of GITMO detainees to the mainland. And yet the President seems to be undeterred. He continues to insist it will be done, even if he has to resort to executive power in defiance of the law and the will of the Congress. So I have been left with very little choice to do what I can as an individual senator to block the transfer of detainees to Fort Leavenworth. I understand and I share the concerns of the distinguished senator. But if there's any anger here or any concerns or any frustrations, they should be directed at a White House that intends to ignore laws written and introduced by the senator from Arizona himself. We should be speaking today not about my attempts to protect the people of my state in Fort Leavenworth. We should be speaking about a White House that ignores the National Defense Authorization Act and every appropriation bill passed in this chamber since 2009. We should be concerned that a White House that wants to bring this terrorist threat to our shores without so much as an intelligence assessment as to the risks and benefits of such an action to our citizens at home or to our men and women in uniform. An intelligence assessment regarding these concerns does not exist. The administration is responsible for refusing to come forward with a real plan to relocate prisoners instead of a weak and rather veiled attempt to honor a campaign promise, which is the only way to characterize the actions to date. Just days ago, I received the most recent classified report from the Department of Defense on moving the detainees from GITMO. This report, far from clearing up any concerns, made it even more apparent to me that it's virtually impossible to safely relocate terrorists to Fort Leavenworth. The assessment is there. All I'm asking is for the White House to assure me Fort Leavenworth is not a viable alternative. Cities and towns across America are holding their collective breaths while we await the White House's judgment as to where to house these detainees. For those of us in the crosshairs, we are left with very few options to fight a president that is willing to break the law. With this hold, I have used one of the tools, perhaps the only tool, afforded to me as a U.S. Senator, other than a filibuster, and I will continue to do everything in my power to fulfill my obligations to protect the national security of the United States. It is what Kansans expect and have demanded of me. Now, if the White House calls and assures me that terrorists held at Guantanamo will not come to Fort Leavenworth, I will gladly release this hold immediately. As a matter of fact, we just had a conversation with the White House this morning in the hope that this could be worked out. The White House simply would not give me that assurance. But make no mistake, I remain adamantly opposed to placing detainees anywhere on the mainland. The distinguished senator from Arizona knows that. I think he shares those views. However, if the plans and studies from the administration rule out Fort Leavenworth as an option, all they have to do is tell me. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
There is